We're a New Zealand NGO, and I did an earlier thing on the coronavirus, and I want to follow up because my family and my friends have asked me to just make a simple list of how we can help ourselves and how we can think about what's happening. It's a very scary time for all of us. Without a doubt, we don't know what's happening, and it's hard to get information that's clear. So I've been paying attention to the progression of the virus, and here are some thoughts. This is a cluster disorder. That means if there is no cluster near you, it's really important that you just go about your life naturally. If you're feeling really afraid, we do use some homeopathics. You can get them online. One is aconite, and the other is argentum nictrum, because those help with fear and to reduce the anxiety of the future. But if there is no cluster near you, then you don't need to have the concern as if you were living in one. And it's important that you understand the difference. Being afraid is one thing. Being afraid of what might happen, it just is havoc in our lives. We don't feel that way every time we get in a car, and we're more likely to die in a car accident than to die of this. We actually don't get afraid when the flu comes around, so this is scary. But if you're not in a cluster, you've just got to go about your life naturally. Yes, washing your hands is a good thing, and social distancing is appropriate if and when the virus comes to your area. If you live in an area that doesn't have tornadoes, it's crazy to be constantly preparing for them. So you want to have behaviors that are appropriate to a response for a short-term situation. So if there is no cluster near you, you're lucky, you're fortunate. Go about your business and be grateful that your area is not impacted now or maybe forever. And yes, have empathy and caring for those that are living in a cluster. It's scary. But if there is no cluster near you, then you really do not have to do anything differently. So the next is, if there are some cases near you, remember this is a cluster disease, and how do we know that? It first started in a very large metropolitan area in China, but it has not clustered anywhere else in China. It's a massive country. It is clustering in northern Italy. It is clustering in areas in Iran and in western Washington state. There are clusters, and there will be more clusters. But many of us will live where this doesn't have a problem, or there are only a few cases in which people recover. So if there are some cases near you, then this is a good idea of self-help for at least 14 days and until the cases resolve. Or if there are new cases that looks like you may have a cluster. A few cases is not a cluster, and they may never become one in the area. Now let me help you understand what I have learned. Like any virus or bacteria or yeast, we have them on and in our body all the time. But when we have something new like the coronavirus or the flu or anything, it's going to try to come into our body, and it comes in through our eyes and ears, our nose, and our mouth. And it has to multiply in our body to make us sick. So our first ability in self-health is to make certain that this virus isn't multiplying at the speed of light in our body, which means, unlike the flu and unlike not feeling well, you want to act fast and first. If there's no virus in your area and you begin to get sick, this is still a good idea, but it's probably not the coronavirus. However, if there are some cases there because they don't know how long the virus lasts on surfaces, so it's a good idea to just do these things for at least 14 days for both you and your children. It's becoming more obvious that children are passing the virus on to their older family members and that they do get sick, but not very sick. So you want to become more aware if there are cases in your area, and you want to begin to implement some appropriate self-care behaviors. Yes, social distancing will become appropriate then, as does hand washing. But you need to understand there is no way people are going to stop touching their faces, scratching, or ears. And the hands aren't the only place where viruses come. So you want to pay attention to your own body and those of your children. If you begin to feel unwell, then we're going to talk about that. But if there are just cases in your area and you feel that the virus may be floating around, then these are the things that you will begin to notice if you get the virus. And you notice this with the flu as well. You may have itching in your eyes, in which case just flush with warm water. Try to get the virus low, just wash it out. If you have itching in your ears, flush with some warm salty water and then put your finger in there with the salty water, get it in the tube. Do that with your kids as well. If you see them itching your eyes, just wash it with warm water. And if they start itching again, wash again. If your ears start itching again, wash them again. If you have a stuffed nose, or if your nose feels like you want to pick at it all the time, you see your kids doing that, then just take a drop of slightly salty water and snort it in once or twice. That changes the environment. Viruses are sensitive. So if you're changing the environment or putting something in their environment they don't like, they can't multiply as fast. And that's your number one job. Cut down the viral load. Don't let it start. If your throat feels sore or raw or sore to swallow, gargle 3 times with warm salty water and spit it out. Every time it starts to feel sore again, do it again. I have a friend who had chemotherapy done, and she told me that everybody was told, gargle with salt water 3 times a day and spit it out. Those people who didn't get sick, and those people who didn't were more likely to get sick post-chemotherapy. So it's like with anything. We have a tendency to go, oh, it's okay, I don't feel well, but it's okay. And if we get the flu or something like that, it is okay. With this virus, you want to try to do something yourself because there's no prevention. There's really just treatment of trying to keep you hydrated, and there's no cure at the moment. So you have to try to reduce the viral load in your system if you feel you've contracted it. If you can get an herbal throat spray or suck herbal throat lozenges, it's doing that. If you're able to cut down the load in your throat, then your throat will be less sore, or it will get sore less often. So every time it's sore, gargle with salt water 3 times and spit it out. And then if you have a herbal throat lozenge or herbal spray, and tell your kids to talk to you about it. And it's really important that if you're in an area that has coronavirus, that you shower every day or every other day, but depending on how many people are sick, particularly at night before you go to bed. And why is that? You're going to be around the virus if it's around all the time. It's going to be on your hands, it's going to be on your body, it's going to be on your clothes, it's going to be on surfaces. Your hands touch your body. They touch surfaces. Yes, wash your hands, but wash your body. And after you've washed your body, then just take some salt water or diluted vinegar or diluted baking soda and rub it all over your hair, all over your body. Then get some good vitamin C that's chewable that you like and lots of pre and probiotics. For those people who have more interest, and you can get these online, there's a now product called Allibiotic, which is a combination of oregano oil, olive leaf extract, garlic, and echinacea and a few other things. You can get oregano oil or olive leaf extract or kyolic garlic. These are all antiviral agents. We hear that the medical profession is saying, don't treat these things as their cures. They're right. We don't have a cure for this. Your job is to cut down the load of the virus in your body and in your children's body. So these things are perfectly right. You're not trying to be alternative or being against medicine. What you're trying to do is take care of yourself. What we heard from Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson was they didn't feel well for a few days. So they didn't have the skills to do these simple tasks. Then they got sicker. So if you're living near a cluster, then what you want to do is monitor the itching in the ears and your throat and your nose and follow the act first and act fast with flushing whenever the itching exists. Throat sprays are wonderful. Shower every evening and follow the steps above. Same way, vitamin C, oregano oil, olive leaf, kyolic. And if you can get a homeopathic nosode called pneumococcus, that's a very good one to get online. It's the nosode of pneumonia. And you want to just take a dose of that and dose everyone in your family. So what I've learned is that this virus actually has 4 phases. And it's that people don't self-care in the early phases. They let it go, that they get sicker. Because if the virus is loading up in your system and it's coming through your eyes or your nose or your ears or your throat, that's where your body can reject it. But once it gets down the respiratory system, then you're dealing with trying to make yourself better, right? So whenever itching occurs in any of those places, just wash out. Don't use salt water in your eyes, but use salt water everywhere else. Throat spray, showering, make certain that you're clean. So in these 4 phases, people first just don't feel well. Sometimes the tummy feels full. So drinking a little bit of salt water, a little dilute vinegar, apple cider vinegar, or a little diluted baking soda changes the environment, and it may stop the virus from going down into your digestive tract, then going through the walls and going into your system. So if you're not feeling well, act fast and act first. And if you're not feeling well, keep doing these simple things for at least 14 days. See how you feel. So that's phase 1, just didn't feel well. There's usually no fever, no cough, because the system, the body, the multiplication of the virus hasn't multiplied that extensively. It takes time. So then people get a fever and a cough. So that's telling you that you have not cut down the viral load. So there are a lot of herbal respiratory teas out there. Continue to take alibiotic or oregano oil or olive leaf extract or kyolic garlic. It's very important to do that along with your vitamin C, along with your prebiotics. And simple things like if you're a drinker, just stop drinking for a while. If you're drinking lots of coffee, just put it aside for a little bit. If you eat junk food, at least for a few days, try to do better. If you can't change your lifestyle, just keep taking care of yourself. It's flushing out your body so that the virus doesn't take hold. What happens in phase 3 of this is that people feel better. So if they haven't felt well, they have a little fever and a cough, then they begin to feel better and think, oh, I'm getting better. But that's the immune system that has really revved up. But this is a very strong virus. So what happens is that often people, if they have an immune system, they don't have a heavy viral load, they will begin to get better at that phase. And that's somewhere between the first day and the 10th day. And that's why it's important for you to continue for 2 weeks. But what happens to a lot of people, and this was true of MERS and SARS, is that feeling better was the body trying, and for some people, particularly with compromised immune systems, or people like with autoimmune deficiencies, or people who get allergic to penicillin or bee stings, what happens? Or even mosquito bites, you get this exaggerated reaction. And that's an autoimmune reaction. That's when your immune system goes into hyperdrive. And that's when people get the pneumonia. And those are the people who have deep respiratory distress and can die. Pneumococcus is a homeopathic you can get. There's also another homeopathic that's called Justitia, Jusstitia. TICIA. Lots more vitamin C, massive amounts of it. And what you want to perhaps try, there's no medical evidence that this works, is take an antihistamine. Because isn't that what an antihistamine does? It stops that histamine overreaction. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. There is a supplement by Life Extension that is a cytokine supplement, because the reaction in the body that is so overloaded that it starts to fight itself is called a cytokine response. CYTOKINE. And there is a supplement by Life Extension that's a cytokine supplement. But if you have an antihistamine, gee, why not try? So if you suddenly start getting really, really, really sick, then try something. We, as Common Knowledge Trust, as I said in the description, we are not into alternative medicine. We've been around for a very, very long time. We believe, as an NGO, that you as an individual and a family, community, culture, have the right to your healthcare system and any other healthcare system you want to use. So what we want to do is to help you have skills in self-health at this really, really scary time. This is not an alternative to healthcare. If you live in a place where you can get tested, get tested. And you also probably know that some people were tested a number of times before they got sick. Testing and symptoms of the itching and the sore throat may not go hand in hand. So you have two choices. Either do nothing for yourself and your family, or take these simple ways of self-help. Either one. We as an NGO want to be proactive in this. We're a New Zealand NGO. There have been 5 cases in New Zealand, 3 within one family. That's a cluster, but it didn't get bigger. Maybe it never will. I have friends that are in parts of France. It's not there. So if it isn't there, don't change your life. If it start to have a few cases, then become wiser. If it breaks out, become wiser. Do more. Spread this. Tell people about it. Share and develop skills. That's what our NGO is about. One hand with healthcare and the other with the birthing better skills that hundreds of mothers and fathers developed in the early 1970s. Skills so that we can prepare our body and we can work through our baby's birth journey under any circumstances. So take care and please pass this on. Thank you so very much.